Has covered the fact that Biden's reached an agreement, so there's not going to be a rail union strike. That's pretty major
Oh,
non-tech
nice.
news.
That must be breaking
I
then.
was in Greg Satel's room earlier, and he was announcing
Cool.
last night they came together and made a deal, so there's not going to be a strike. That's great news.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for that. So, the top story in the tech news today is that Adobe plans to acquire UI design and prototyping tool Figma for around $20 billion in cash and stock. Figma CEO Dylan Field will continue in the role. Adobe drops 8% on the news of acquiring Figma, which is kind of the future of Photoshop. I mean, I think Adobe, which for a decade or two, I would say two, sort of dominated graphic design and illustration creation through Illustrator and Photoshop, and they've now reached the end of that era, and they're getting their clock cleaned by Figma and Canva, and so they're acquiring them for 20 billion. There you go. That's
It's
one
a
way to do
pretty
it.
sizable acquisition, 20
That's huge.
billion.
That's huge. Yeah. For context, for those who don't remember, Instagram, Skype, and most big apps that have been acquired by other big ones were in the 1 to 2 billion range. So this is a heck of an you know heck of an acquisition.
Is it wise or is it desperation or both?
I would say more of the latter. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think. I think they have to do something dramatic, because they're just gonna get shipped away by Canva and Figma, and these.
The old saying, if you can't beat them, buy them.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. The next story is that Ethereum activates its long-awaited merge upgrade, and transactions are now being processed under proof of stake instead of proof of work. The merge upgrade is transitioning Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake. The merge is one of the largest technological events in the industry to date. As Ethereum moves to proof of stake, about 11% of Ethereum is staked and earning, but it won't be withdrawable until the Shanghai update expected in about 6 months. Ethermine, the largest Ethereum mining firm, plans to shut down its servers for miners after Ethereum's merge and switch its mining pool to withdrawal-only mode, because it's no longer about proof of work. You're no longer have to waste a whole lot of energy to prove that you did it. And just for the non-crypto folks, essentially Ethereum, similar to Bitcoin, previously, historically, has been about using specialized processors to mine it's a rather energy intensive process by design, because that's valuable. Doing that work, just like your human physical labor, this is like computer labor, and required specialized, not inexpensive equipment, and lots of it to do this mining. It's a really nice digital, although it's not even digital, it's somewhat physical. It's actual real physical power required with real physical chips, and you mine these coins, whether they be Ethereum or Bitcoins. And the problem with that, of course, is the main criticism from lots of people, including Elon Musk, that it's not green. We would love to adopt this, but it's not green. There's a ton of companies around the world who would love to engage in this, but cannot, because it's not green enough. And they've got these massive green mandates. Every Fortune 5,000 company, every major company in the world has, the weight of climate change on their heads, and so they can't. It's kind of kryptonite to be dabbling in it for those reasons. So Elon even said, listen, if you guys can make this thing green, I will happily get all over this thing. And so what Ethereum has done essentially is shift from proof of work, which is very energy intensive, to proof of stake, which is not. And so the cost of energy drops about 99% in this transition. And that is one of many, but perhaps the primary uh, motive behind this massive change. Will Bitcoin do that? No, it can't because it's not run. But well, no, I can't. Yeah, no, I don't think Bitcoin can make this transition like Ethereum has because Ethereum is not a a truly decentralized, truly non-custodial in the way that Bitcoin is. There's nobody to make those decisions in Bitcoin per se.
No, actually, the comment from Nicholas, he may join later, but his comment is it's totally centralized and controlled by existing money center powers anyway.
Right. Okay, so next up, in a U.S. Senate committee hearing, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter executives defend their platforms and dodged questions about security, privacy, and moderation. Executives from four of the biggest social media companies testified before the Senate Homeland Security Committee yesterday. And there's a second article that says TikTok and its links to China mean that wrongdoing will be punished more harshly in the US than Meta and Twitter, no matter how transparent the company is. In a new testimony to Congress, the company faces stern questions on China. And there's a nice photo of the representatives from those companies raising their hands and swearing to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you. And yeah, they're getting a lot of tough questions from senators. The hearing was convened to explore social media's impact on national security broadly and touched on topics ranging from domestic extremism and misinformation to child sexual abuse imagery and China. Okay, so will they get down to the bottom of TikTok or not? And will TikTok's representative perjure themselves? Is the first thought that comes to my mind. So, here's a whole paragraph. There's a whole section of 5 paragraphs about TikTok in China in this article. In her first appearance before Congress with TikTok, the representative named Pappas immediately fell into step with her peers, evading straightforward questions, offering partial answers, and even refusing at one point to admit TikTok's well-documented connections to China. Wow. Wow. You know you're off to a great start when you're refusing to acknowledge the obvious connections to China. When Senator Rob Portman of Ohio pressed Pappas on where TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance is based, she dodged the question awkwardly by claiming the company is distributed and doesn't have a headquarters at all. Oh, get the fuck out of here. ByteDance? You're trying to claim that ByteDance is not a Chinese-based company? Oh, yeah, that's bordering on perjury right there. That's why I'm saying, first, right off the bat, like, Pappas under oath as the good on you, journalist, whoever wrote this second sentence. Pappas under oath. Yeah, thank you for reminding us. Also, because that's what the journalist is thinking exactly what I'm thinking is you're under oath. That this means perjury. So under oath also categorically denied explosive reports from BuzzFeed that China-based ByteDance employees regularly accessed private data on U.S. TikTok users, even though that reporting is drawn from leaked audio sources. So she's denying audio recordings of TikTok employees who revealed that people back in Beijing were accessing the U.S. Servers and the data, and she's denying it. So you're denying that the audio in those recordings is what it appears to be. Again, you're dancing on the edge of perjury there. The TikTok executive also declined to agree to Portman's request that the company cut off the flow of user data to any employees based in China. Oh, why? What would be the problem if as you claim, you have your company's not even really Chinese, and you deny that was ever happening? Well, then what's the problem with promising that you'll never do it? The executive declined to agree to the request that the company cut off the flow of user data to any employees based in China. Why would you decline that? Quote, under no circumstances would we give user data to the Chinese government, Papas insisted, though she did not weigh in on behalf of TikTok's parent company. Yeah, well, that doesn't mean you're not sending it back to team members in China. And you don't have a choice at that point, once that data is in China, whether the government gets access to it or not. Senator Josh Hawley also drilled into TikTok's relationship with the Chinese government. Are there members of the Chinese Communist Party employed by TikTok or ByteDance or not? He asked. Papas avoided answering the question directly. Wow, what a surprise. But eventually landed on an answer that no one making strategic decisions at the company has ties to the Chinese government. It was strategic decisions in air quotes. So now you have to unpack how she defines strategic decisions. It's a classic Bill sexual relations. What was that? What was that, President? Bill Clinton. I had no sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky. Okay, well now we have to unpack your definition of sexual relations. Clever. That's clever. She's smart. That's a very smart political way to answer that question. Although, if you look at the bigger picture, she's basically communicating that they are a puppet of the CCP. I mean, essentially, the fact that she's not able to answer these questions in a straightforward way tells you everything you need to know about what's really going on. So anyway, yeah, let's see what the Senate does about TikTok. By the way, did I mention that I said TikTok might get in some deep shit in the very near future? Did I mention that like 2 weeks ago, a week ago? Cheryl?
Yes.
I did. Okay. Well, here we are in a Senate hearing.
No, the whistleblower did it.
And the Senate hearing is predominantly focused on TikTok, strangely. Interesting. I wonder, did they bring Twitter and Facebook and YouTube to this meeting to obfuscate the fact that this is really a hearing about TikTok? I'll let you wonder that. I'm not. I'm being facetious when I say I wonder. I'm not wondering. I know exactly what's going on here. This Senate hearing is about TikTok, and rather than make it appear like a witch hunt, they brought the other companies there because they might have a question or two for them. But as the journalists all point out, TikTok was the one in the hot seat in a very real way yesterday in the Senate hearing about how, the up and down and left and right of it. The gig is up. The government heard what's going on. And TikTok's going to get screwed. As I said, I don't know, a week and a half ago, TikTok in the rather near future is likely to get very, very hot seated and exactly this type of attention. And now they're going to deliberate based on the testimony. And the way she answered those questions, if you're an experienced politician, tells you everything you need to know about. Those are red flags, the way she answered those questions. So that's an interesting story. So the next one is Google. Hold on. Oh yeah, Google redesigns the Memories feature in Photos to spotlight more videos, launching a collage editor, and will let users share memories with family and friends. Who cares? A review of Intel's pre-release AI upscaling tech. So they've got a whole new ARC GPU for AI. So Intel's staying active in that game against NVIDIA and whatnot. And ARM, Intel's main domestic competitor, unveils the Neoverse version 2, the next generation core for pushing cloud, hyperscale, and HPC performance workloads, which is set to power NVIDIA's upcoming Grace CPU. So America's going full steam on the semiconductor front, and China's trying to, really, 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 really trying to. And the West is really, really, really trying to impede them from doing that. Next is from the New York Times. California's Attorney General files an antitrust lawsuit against Amazon, focusing on the company allegedly penalizing sellers who list products at lower prices on their site. Oh, that's interesting. So I imagine what happened here, and I think it's safe to assume that you have Amazon has got this. This is actually a bit of a problem for Amazon. They've gotten to the point of a really fully robust, mature platform where the sellers are being undercut by the platform itself. By the way, this happens in grocery stores as well, where a grocery store sees the data of what's selling, and this brand of French fries is selling really well. Okay, well, we as the supermarket have 500 locations. We can place a huge order from a potato farm and make our own goddamn French fries that are identical from the same farm, cut on the same machines as this brand that we sell a lot of, and we can sell it at 5% less. And they'll choose our brand, and now we're going to undercut the best selling products in our stores. And eventually 7-Elevens do this as well all across Asia.
Tyler,
Yes.
yeah, it's very. I'm glad you're giving this example, because when they opt to do their own, they can set a floor on what we call the national brand can sell. So sometimes you have what we call high-low pricing, where you start in, let's just say, at $1, and then you spike it every now and then and go to 75 cents or something like that. And that's your brand strategy versus an everyday price of $1. They can say, well, you know what? I just want you never to go at 75 because I'm going to have my private label at 75 cents. So the lowest you can go, even if you want to feature at my store, is 85 cents. So they totally take off your strategy. Now, what they're doing with Amazon, it's so funny because I'm surprised they haven't done it in the food industry, food and bev industry, with some other bigger retailers that used to clamp down on national brands. And every time they would see something in another paper or someplace else that had a higher price, you would be called in and say, how did they do this? And in essence, they were basically saying, you can't go lower than me anywhere else. You'd be surprised at how often that happened. We get those calls in headquarters all the time.
This particular case with the California Attorney General is he's suing on the grounds that Amazon sellers believe that Amazon is punishing them as sellers if they make their products available for a lower price outside of Amazon. Because essentially what you're doing in that example, if you're a seller and you offer your goods, your products at a lower rate elsewhere off of Amazon, then essentially you're using Amazon for the visibility. And this is more common in the hotel industry, where you as a hotel might put your hotel on Booking.com and Expedia.com at very, very, very high prices. People will see it and they might say, oh, that place looks nice. Coconut Beach looks fantastic. It looks a bit expensive. I wonder if it's available somewhere else for less. And then they Google Coconut Beach at Thailand, and then they find your direct website where you're selling your rooms at half the price. And so essentially you're using those other platforms, Booking.com, Expedia, Amazon, or whoever, as visibility, as distribution, as marketing, free marketing. And they don't like that, that you're using their platform for free marketing for your products. And they're getting nothing out of this deal. And you're getting a lot out of this deal because now you've set this expected price value of X and you're selling it at a discount off of their platform. They don't like that. They really don't like that. And they very likely, hold on, Cheryl. If they find out that you're doing that, they almost certainly will remove you from visibility in their platform. They'll do a sort of shadow ban against you. So now here's my point, is that it's almost certain that Amazon is doing this. And so enough sellers got sick of, hey, Amazon's punishing us. We're not doing anything wrong. We have our products for sale on Amazon. And so the attorney general probably dug up enough data that they feel like they have a case to go after Amazon on this ground. So what's up, Cheryl?
Okay, most of the hotels, well, that I see on booking.com, right, usually it's not always, because the you always get the best price from their direct website. That's for sure. I mean that's my experience, right? So the only thing about booking.com, the only attractive part is you can book without paying first. I mean, you put your credit card down, but they only charge you when you check in, right? But if you
There's
book,
several benefits to booking with booking.com.
yes.
Yeah.
But if you book from a direct site, you have to pay, right, upfront. I mean, other than Japan, of course,
No,
Japan
not
can just
it,
call in
it
and
in the hotel example,
yeah.
hotels can have the purchase terms of conditions, right?
Mm,
The contract, when you buy directly from the hotel directly,
mm,
they make up their own terms on payment. They can say you got to pay everything up front, or you can pay half an hour. They can make up whatever they want.
yeah.
On booking.com decides how you pay the terms. And booking.com will give you flexibility. They'll say you can pay half now and half later and whatever.
Yes.
Where a lot of
Or pay
hotels
on
don't
check-in.
offer that if you book direct. That's true.
Yeah.
Also, the cancellation policies can be very different for the same hotel booking direct or booking through something like booking.com, for example, where the hotel might say, oh, if you book with us directly and you cancel, you don't get any refund at all. And on booking.com, you have uh, you have it 48 hours, for example, would sort of be the minimum. No, you can't, as a hotel, say from the minute they click buy, they can no longer get a refund. I think
Yeah,
by
but
law, booking gives them 24 or 48 hours. But if they're booking with you directly, you might say, no, the second you click buy, it's over, and you don't have 24 or 48 hours. So there's other
but the
instances.
point is, right, usually the direct website from the hotels, usually you get the best price. And one trick for those visiting Japan, if you call in to book, right, you don't have to leave your credit card number for confirmation. So although they verbally say there's a cancellation, but it will not happen because they don't have your credit card details if you call in to book. And another thing about Amazon, I'm not sure about other countries, but in Japan, usually the unit price of the product on Amazon is always not the best, but usually Amazon will give free delivery compared to, for example, Rakuten. They may have a price of the unit price of something is lower, but if you just buy that thing alone, usually you have to pay for a delivery that is much more expensive unless you matome kao, that means 3,000 yen or 4,000 then you get free delivery. So I don't think Amazon enforced that in Japan too, by the way.
Okay,
Yeah. Because
next
Amazon
up.
don't usually have the best price, but if you include delivery, then the deal is not too bad.
The point I want to raise is when Amazon is at this late stage where they're getting California's Attorney General filing these types of suits, and it's in part because Amazon is playing heavy-handed with the sellers, and the sellers are getting frustrated and pushing the attorney general to file these kinds of massive suits. Yeah, you're in the late stage of empire building here, and this is the type of opportunity that places like Shopify love to come in and be very seller friendly and be like, hey, are you pissed off with Amazon? Why don't you be more direct? And so, for example, with hotels, like, why don't you have your own direct website and we can build a network of hotels that you can buy directly, and we all promote each other, and that's kind of the Shopify model. So, in fact, there's somebody should make a Shopify for hotels. That would be a genius concept. I think I just figured out my next startup idea. But anyway, the next article is Google cancels 7 out of 14 projects in its incubator called Area 120, including one startup which offered storefronts for creators. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. What a coincidence. We were just talking about alternatives to Amazon for people to sell stuff online. And Google, watch out, here comes Google with storefronts for creators and shifts to an AI first project. That could have that could have been a huge project. Google Maps, by the way, when you're looking to buy stuff, YouTube has an amazing opportunity, and that's actually with a partnership with Shopify, actually. And then you have Google Maps, where you have the stores, and now every store and beach and park and library, every location on the goddamn planet is on Google Maps. And when you click on any location, and I'm talking a trillion different locations, a page pops up, and that page has lots of content on it. Lots. Reviews, photos, videos, menus, directions, hours, on and on and on and on and on. And Google very cleverly, once you put your phone number into that, starts messaging you and calling you and uh, contacting you and all of your customers who go there to find out more about your business to build that page. Even if you don't even know it's there, you might have a cake shop. You could be, a complete Luddite who's never touched a computer in your life, and you might have a cake shop. And your cake shop is listed in Google Maps, and you will have user reviews there. Your hours will be there. Your menu will be there. Every possible thing worth knowing about your cake shop will be there. How's that done? Because Google very cleverly looks at when the visitor visits your location and knows that that Google Android user, and they don't even have to be an Android user, it works for iPhone users. If they have the Google Maps app installed on the iPhone, who here hasn't received a message that says, "Were you just at Betty's Cake Shop? How was it? Please review it." And if you review it, they don't stop there. Oh no, they then ask you, do these hours look correct? Did they have free parking? Did they have Wi-Fi? Did they have this and that and 50 other things? Did they, is it a wheelchair accessible bathroom? Was it, on and on? It will go forever until you say, oh, Jesus Christ, Google, enough's enough. And, 30 minutes later, you're like, Jesus, how much do you want to know about Betty's Cake Shop? And they do that to everybody who's coming to Betty's Cake Shop. And that's how they're building this truly impressive database of every freaking square meter on the planet. And those pages that those customers are building is building profile. And now I can tell you, because this is really my main jam. I built a startup on this whole thing previously in another life, where these review pages, these Google pages of every single business you can ever think of, they're now trying to encourage, very, very much encourage, the business that is associated with that page to enable purchasing through that page, which is essentially e-commerce in that page. And they'll say, oh, are you a hair cutting salon? Would you please click this button to allow people to select and book times? And do you already have a booking engine with mytime.com or one of the 100 other solutions out there for scheduling your bookings? Do you already have that? Great. Tell us which one you have and just click this button right here and we'll connect right to it so that people can schedule their appointments right into your thing. And what Google's very cleverly doing is putting themselves immediately between the intent, meaning the customer and their desire to do business with you, and you, the business. They're now the middleman. They used to be the middleman, and they just handed the customer over to you, to your website. Not anymore. They want to be part of the transaction. They want the transaction to happen in that little window about your business. They want the customer to book it right on that Google page and pay with Google Wallet and what have you. So and they want you to start, once they've dominated that space, they will then play funny games for you to advertise on Google Maps. And believe you me, they're already doing that. I'm already getting, $500 free credit to advertise, on Google Maps and whatnot. Advertise my business, my profile page on Google Maps, so that when people go on Google Maps and search for a resort or, beach hotel or whatever, that I will be much more visible with a special little icon on the map, so that they'll just click on, or when they search, I'll be the first listed in the search result. So Google's has an incredibly lucrative e-commerce uh, avenue to pursue for the next 10, 20 years to potentially go head to head with Amazon because they also have YouTube. So when you are selling anything, any physical thing, they will then say, "Oh, are you? Here's your business at this location. Are you selling stuff? Oh, you are. Oh, great. What items are you selling? Please put them in your profile page. Okay, great. By the way, would you like to make a video of them? Because if you make a video of it, then you'll really get more profile. Oh, why don't you make that video on YouTube? And now they're going to get you in two different ways. Do you see how this could be an advantage against Amazon? It's a really beautiful e-commerce future that Google has ahead of it if they play their cards right, which they will. They're very clever, and it's just getting started now in a way that people don't quite yet realize. But it's a huge potential. But that the point that triggered this rant is that this company called Kaya, spelled Qaya, what a ridiculous spelling for a startup, which offered storefronts for creators. Although maybe that's for YouTube creators. There was storefronts for YouTube creators. That's a goddamn genius idea in itself. But um, so they're shutting down a bunch of projects out of their incubator. Okay, next story. Financial Times says they have sources that alongside the UK's Central Market Authority, think of the FTC, the EU is expected to launch an in-depth investigation into Microsoft's $75 billion acquisition of Activision due to the size and competition fears. So now you have the UK and the EU both simultaneously digging into the Microsoft's acquisition of Activision because those are separate governments now. After all, the UK left. It was called Brexit. You might have heard of it. Anyway, the next is MIT Tech Review. We covered this one about Baidu's new text-to-image AI model, which has no. It's one of the world's smartest AI algorithms that's never heard of Tiananmen Square for very peculiar reasons. I wonder why China's incredibly world's best of class AI system has never heard of Tiananmen Square. What a puzzle.
And have
So
they had about Winnie the Pooh?
probably not. Probably not. The next is Apple Watch Series 8 review from The Verge with watchOS 9, which is coming out. Crash detection and temperature sensors are excellent, but need daily charging. Oh, but the watch needs daily charging, and the update is fairly incremental. Okay. And then it says, don't upgrade. What the hell? Should I upgrade or not? The Series 8. So no, this isn't a terribly exciting update. Then again, does it have to be? Okay, sounds like they're relatively lukewarm about this one. Okay. Let's go to the last paragraph. What do they say in the last paragraph here? Holy shit, this is a long article. Oh my god, that's a long article. It says, listen, the Series 8 doesn't revolutionize the Apple Watch as we know it, but it doesn't have to. Part of the reason why Apple can get away with year after year of incremental updates is because it is light years ahead of its rivals. And we're seeing more competition sprout up among Android smartwatches. But if the forthcoming Pixel Watch is any indication, wearable ecosystems will remain siloed for the foreseeable future. When it comes to smartwatches, Apple has a winning formula, and until someone comes up with another smartwatch that iPhone owners actually want, it has no reason to fix what isn't broken. Okay, and they should mention that the Google Pixel Watch is debuting next month, isn't it?
I
Google.
I just wanted to say that the iPhone 16, the iOS 16 update, a friend of mine who's very tech, who doesn't join us in Clubhouse, he basically, his comment was, yeah, all this update did was basically give us the features that Android had that were cool. So it fits well with this supermarket model of undercutting your competitor. I just wanted to draw that parallel while we're on the subject.
So it's October 6th. So 3 weeks from now will be the Google Pixel Watch event. And I'm looking at it. It looks pretty freaking cool. It looks like Apple Watch with a round Apple Watch is what it looks like. Even the band is a clear ripoff of the traditional band. But if it integrates with Google Assistant, which you know goddamn well it will, um, that might. It depends if they can conjure up some clever use cases that you're not able to do on an Apple Watch. And clearly, the low hanging fruit there is going to be by tapping into the vastly superior Google Assistant, because Siri just sucks. Sucks. And that's an easy way to stick it to Apple. So the next is Amazon announces a tailored audiences tool coming to all US sellers in early 2023, which will let brands and sellers and merchants send marketing emails to shoppers targeted based on their interests. And they'll charge you a very pretty penny for the privilege. And you won't actually know their email address. You'll be able to, they'll send it on your behalf. Thank you very much. Brands and sellers will be able to email customers directly. Sure. What do you mean exactly? Are you handing over the email or not? Or do I have to create an email campaign, select the demographic I want to target, and then you send that on my behalf without actually revealing the email address? I can guarantee you they're not revealing the email address, but first of all, for GDPR reasons. But I love how the framing is emailing customers directly. Yeah, well, kind of, technically, depending on how you define the word directly, through Amazon's platform, but directly, but without ever knowing the email address. So you don't actually own the customer. Amazon will let brands and merchants send marketing emails to shoppers, a risky bid to boost sales that could inundate inboxes with spam. Oh, you got that right. Oh, gee, I wonder if Google's gonna put those emails in the spam box. Gee, what a difficult question. The company announced the initiative Wednesday at the Amazon Accelerate conference in Seattle, where it demonstrates new features to the independent businesses that sell more than half of the products on Amazon. Merchants will be able to send free emails to recent shoppers, repeat customers, and their biggest spenders through a tailored audiences tool. Here it comes, told you. Which will also let sellers monitor the results. Also, you'll get to see how many opened your campaign. The tool has been in testing this year and will be available to all US sellers in early 2023. Now, this is where it gets very clever. I don't even know, but I know. They haven't even said, I haven't even read the rest of the article. I can assure you this tool will allow you to create a campaign, do a targeted audience of people who have viewed your product or your page or a competitor's page or searched for a particular term that you know are related to, and then include them in your email campaign. That's brilliant. And then they're going to tell you how many people opened your campaign, how many read the campaign, how many clicked on the link in your campaign that then drove them back to your page. And then those ones who clicked, you can create another follow-up campaign you can double down and spend a little bit more to do a follow-up campaign with the people who actually clicked and to try and steal that business from your competitors. I know this business very well because I'm in this business. I have a massive email news community, a database of all the geeks of Scandinavia, and tech companies from all over constantly are offering to pay me money to send emails to my email list. And I don't let them have the emails. Well, legally, I can't due to GDPR. And I tell them I will email on your behalf, and it'll look like it's coming from you, but it's not. It's coming from me, and that's probably better anyways in terms of open rate. And then I do let them know the open rate, and I do the exact same thing that Amazon's doing. This is, I mean, maybe I'm no marketing genius, and I figured this out, and now Amazon's figured it out, and it's good business. It's actually one of the best things about being building a large community is selling access to that community. So you'll all be getting an email from some realtors who would like to know if you want to sell your house. By the way, it'll be coming from me, but go ahead and click on it. And the anyway, so yeah, Amazon's getting into the email marketing game. It's clever. They'll make a lot of money, and for certain products, it'll be a dream come true. And that's a clever opportunity for particular products. There are some products that will absolutely explode due to this seemingly minor uh, change of uh, customer engagement. I'm trying to think of a great example. Not there will be a few product categories that will now really be able to explode due to being able to get through to the customer via in their inbox, and you can send them nice, colorful emails and be able to track their interest and whatnot. So, if the higher ticket items, I think, will do much better with this. So, the next story is Samsung pledges to invest more than $5 billion into research and development for tech that achieves net zero emissions in its device businesses by 2030. Coinbase updates its app to let US users see a scorecard that evaluates members of Congress on crypto policy issues. Oh, that's sneaky. That's so clever, sinister, wickedly clever there, Brian. Because they want you to know who to vote for. Because if you vote for people who have a low score, who are uncrypto friendly, then your this whole crypto game is over. It will be regulated out of existence. And if you vote for the politicians who are crypto friendly, then the crypto party's on, bro. Hold, to the moon, baby. So Coinbase has a real strong incentive and interest in informing their own hundreds of users or hundreds of millions of users or tens of millions, whatever they have, on how to vote, because they know that people who have crypto holdings will likely that will be a key election issue for them, more so than other election issues like immigration or abortion or salary minimum wage or whatever. So it's very clever because in doing this, Coinbase can shift election results potentially substantially in some smaller areas. Phil, somebody wanted to jump in on this?
Well, the evaluation result will be biased anyway because it's on the crypto exchange. So who cares?
No, actually, it's a pretty big deal in that other organizations are kind of doing the same thing. The only difference is this is like a for-profit um,
Yep.
thing that's doing it. I think it's a great campaign, and other people or other organizations that are kind of new that have a movement going on and have a database with strong followers. I mean, in
Robert,
essence, they're creating an indirect pack to
Ro-
influence elections.
Robert, are you on Coinbase?
No, I am an
Yeah,
old-fashioned caveman.
exactly. But those who are on Coinbase are pro crypto, right? So the evaluation result will be biased anyway. You don't have to look at it, you know what the result is.
You know what the result is, but what we're talking about is influence Congress on how to vote, right? You vote them out of office, or you vote them
You
in.
mean for you, Robert, who is not pro crypto, you have no Coinbase account, will you go Coinbase to look at who to vote?
Oh, I wouldn't. Absolutely not.
Exactly.
And the other thing is, Cheryl, and is like, are the people who are with all the doing all these coins, are they even registered voters?
Oh no, it allows you to register to vote on the platform in the sorry,
Whoa.
because they want you to vote because you're a crypto holder and they want you to vote for people high on the scorecard that are crypto friendly.
I feel you on Mike.
It's really brilliant. Although I don't want to say it's
I know.
desperate, but it's like it's brilliant. I mean, but they do this because it's necessity is the mother of invention. So,
This is survival, I think. If anything, it's very fair game. But it'll be interesting to see if any of those crypto people use any of their money, because money is speech, and how you
oh,
can be the loudest or the
Eric, you just fucking that's amazing. Imagine if the Coinbase Political Action Committee, Super PAC, how much of your crypto would you like to donate into the crypto super PAC that we could then use to give money to those politicians who are high ranking crypto advocates? So that
yeah.
there's
That's what I see this forming into. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. That's really amazing. And then you've got Coinbase very quickly becomes one of the most powerful super PACs on the planet, next to I don't know what's the Jewish one in the U.S. The AAIC, whatever it is.
Or
Oh
like
my god.
NRA or
Yeah,
Republican.
NRA, exactly. And those
You know,
big ones have massive annual events that those politicians come and kiss those donators' asses. Oh boy, and make all kinds of election promises.
So this is open bribery platform.
well, I would say this is also reaching out cohort of population which normally is not involved in politics or not even interested. Young people who are tech inclined are not interested in politics at all. They don't like to even think about voting or register. I'm just making a generalization here. Not everybody's like that, but in general. And through this platform, people who are interested or are with crypto kind of currency related platforms, they will now be aware of who is voting, which party is voting for their benefit, which party is voting against them, who to support, what to do, and somehow they will get involved in politics more, perhaps registering for voting. This is a very good way of solving the two problems: increase voter registration and also contributing towards policy making that benefits the future or benefits perhaps their industry, which normally they are completely not involved in, as opposed to others like Republican Party or other extreme right or even extreme left wings are very limited in numbers but active. I receive emails every month where I live in South asking for money from Donald Trump directly for his funds. And there are emails coming out from NRA and other organizations here. Even the religious organizations do the fundraising on regular basis, but I don't see any such efforts from the tech community. So to me, this is like a very good first step.
Well, I think Larry Page said it best. When you're a young person, you look at politics, you're like, yeah, there's not much change possible there. But with corporations, especially with startups, which is why I think they've become so popular, is hey, you can change the world. Go make a startup that solves that problem instead of going into politics. So I think the way that things have shifted, it's important to note that. But I agree with Aram that it's nice to see that technology engage in politics, which usually isn't in this kind of way. Although, to what extent this is like technology or finances.
So Brian Armstrong, the CEO over at Coinbase, did a tweet saying, starting today, Coinbase will begin integrating our crypto policy efforts right into our app. These will help our 103 million verified users get educated on the crypto positions held by political leaders where they live. For instance, US users can see crypto sentiment scores from members of Congress based on publicly available statements they've made, register to vote, and find out about local town hall events. Over time, we want to help pro-crypto candidates solicit donations from the crypto community in crypto We'll also expand to get more geographic coverage in global elections and add data on various candidates running for office, not just current election results. Some of the publicly available data backing this comes from an organization we help support called the Crypto Action Network. This scorecard is the first of its kind and a new tool for the crypto community to learn about their elected officials. Crypto advocacy is very important for our mission of increasing economic freedom in the world, and Coinbase will do its part to help. But the crypto community is much bigger than Coinbase. Hopefully, we can all rally to engage elected leaders and drive sensible policies. The crypto community is becoming an increasingly large constituent. You can read about our broader education initiatives here.
That's fascinating because perhaps I hope they can also contribute towards education policy, including, in public school education regarding coding or other technological uh, related, courses. Education is a very good prime example of where we are lacking behind, and people like who are invested or are more techno-minded need to get involved to create future generation that learn about coding or computer sciences from an early age.
Okay.
Well, we'll see how this goes. I think it's a great idea. Other industries do it. It's about time, and we'll see how the registration goes. I look to see what the output is. But one thing we have to consider, or I'll consider, is do our politicians really want more informed voters, and do they really want more voters, or do they only want people who vote the way they want them to vote? And I don't think our politicians want more voters within their country. We'll tout that beyond our borders that we want people to vote as in other countries and everything like that. But we tend to like to suppress votes in places where we think that they're not going to vote for us. But I hope this circumvents that and gets a number of people involved that should be. Thank you.
I think it's about not what politicians want, but what people want. And people, through this kind of awareness, can decide if they don't want that politician and want to replace those politicians. It's about time that politics or politicians catch up to future, and people who are kind of disconnected from the world of politics, thinking that nothing matters or nothing changes, may actively participate and replace such politicians who are, suppressing or choosing these very you know, harmful policies. I'm indicating towards uh, Roe versus Wade and other uh, laws that are kind of archaic and against human rights.
Cal says, didn't want politics at work. Oh, Cal brings up a great point. He's listening to the live stream and he just DM'd our little back channel to say that he's listening on Twitter, and the Coinbase thing is interesting since Brian was a big story to just before COVID because he didn't want politics at work. This is a great point Cal's making here. I imagine most of you will remember this. Brian Armstrong at Coinbase. Basically, this was right after the Black Lives Matter summer when there was a large protest going on. And he said, listen, we have our own mission here at Coinbase. And if, we need this to be a political vacuum. So you can have your own political views and social issues and go out and do that shit after hours and on the weekends, and that's great. But leave that shit at the door and don't bring it in here because there's a lot of division going on in the U.S. on this issue of Black Lives Matter and defund the police and all of that. The Kenosha, Kyle Rittenhouse, all of these things were very powder keg conversations that were going on that were very polarizing. And he said, that's not our jam. That's a distraction. We need to remove that cancer from the premises. So if you can't not talk about those things, then you need to go work somewhere else. We're going to offer you a severance package. And they did, and said, if you want to accept it, here it is. It's rather generous. And I think it was 5% of the team took the severance package because their social views were social political views were more important than their job at Coinbase apparently. So some people left. The New York Times wrote a hit piece about how many of those 5 or whatever percent it was, uh, that there was a handful of African American or Black team members who decided to step out, and the New York Times tried to use the gin up, manufacture some juicy quotes. This is just classic sausage making, and tried to do a real strong hit piece on Coinbase at the time. But back to Cal's point, which was, let's not forget, the premise of this was removing politics from Coinbase at work. And then, so it is ironic, is it not, that Coinbase is going headfirst into politics.
Spot on catch by Cal. Spot on catch. And so maybe because he feels at risk, he feels like, or his bread and butter feels at risk, he feels like, well, maybe we can do the political thing now, right?
Yeah, well, there it's not as quite it's not quite as hypocritical as it might seem, because Brian's point was, we have a mission. Our mission is to expand the adoption of crypto writ large.
Or is it to raise global consciousness? That's a joke here for We Crash.
Okay, but so he is staying true to the fact that they have a singular mission, that they are. It's not that they were apolitical; it's that they were single issue. And if you have any other issues that you care about, then you should step down and go focus on those issues, and that's great and that's lovely. But we have a singular issue here, and so it's a slight reframing. Perhaps it's not that they. Somebody should raise this question to him the next time they get a chance to interview him at the conference, and be like, exactly as Cal framed it, as we were just discussing. And I imagine he'll give a reply similar to what I'm suggesting, which is, no, it's not that we're not political. It's just that we're a singular issue, which is driving adoption. And so he'll have an out if he answers that way. So the next
I
story.
don't think they have any choice, right? To start becoming. I mean, let's be honest. And I didn't want to necessarily say something. I want to start a huge debate about it. But crypto is not what crypto started to be. It's so gone off the rails. It literally is the big banks now. There's fees for everything. With all these companies are become very big established. The one difference is that technologists, the digerati, we don't like politics. We just don't get involved in it very often. You know what I mean? We just want to find ways to get around that. We don't want to deal with the government.
Can
And
you be?
sorry.
No, I'm sorry. That's so. Would you say digerati? I just want to separate the empowerment from technologies from your political mindset. And a lot of Silicon Valley technologies have been driven by libertarians. So when you're saying kind of against politics, that is a kind of a specific.
Yeah,
It's
I guess
more.
what I'm saying is when you become established, they become political. You're right, the Peter Thiels of the world and things like that. But I'm talking about the people who developed the crypto early on. We were talking about we wanted to eliminate fees. We did Bitcoin mining. We could transfer money amongst each others. Now you've got fees. Now the proof of stake means that we're putting the power in more people who can stake enough money. It's changed dramatically and makes banks look good, to be honest.
I think for another layer of refinement, also just to kind of pick up on that, is there's two other steps that we're talking about. There's building credibility and taking out all of the criminal activity, right? There's cleaning up crypto to create the mass market, and then there's the banks kind of piling on, like you're saying. So it is, as it's becoming domesticated, those chasms that it's been leaping are different, right? So but I agree with you that the revolution that started with crypto in the early days were from people who are just who are fed up with lots of how the banking sector can just do all of the malicious things that it does.
So seeing them, like you said, take it a step further, seeing companies like Coinbase change their tactics and now going into and let's start getting political. I mean, they've become the big banks. They've become the big companies. Exactly what we were trying to get away from when crypto started. You know, so it's changed dramatically. I read a piece that made me think about this morning about how they're suggesting that Prince Charles should abdicate because he's at the age of 75 because he doesn't represent his constituents. But here in the U.S., I mean, some of these people some of our politicians who are in their 70s or 60s, I mean, who do they represent exactly? You
Hmm.
know, you tell them about, hey, we're going to do crypto. Oh, no, no, big bad. They don't even know what it is.
I think that's a level of competence, though, right? It's not really the age so much, but I understand how it's frustrating for millennials, just because of we got some big problems that us boomers did not clean up, you know. So I totally respect that part of it, but it's a competence. If you are still in office or holding an office and you've grown to be incompetent, then it's time to make a change.
A good point.
I see this decision switch or political or mindset switch in terms of how Coinbase is getting political as a reaction to the regulations when politicians came after cryptocurrency or blockchain technology, trying to regulate and create policies, and that regulation towards something that they don't even understand. Not all of them, some of them don't get it completely, and then how they are trying to propose policies for something. So in response to that regulation by government or politician, they have no choice but to get involved, get informed, and influence those policies or share their concerns or at least support the politicians
Hit the baby
and
bang.
start trying. Somebody's unmuted. So it's their reaction to the regulation, the policy making that was initiated by these politicians who totally don't understand what blockchain technology is. So they left the voice. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, and I hope some of the other firms start doing the same thing because I think we need to get our voices heard and get more people who are competent in office so that they understand what they're doing. I mean, a lot of it, Liam, like you said, is a reaction to their constituents who are losing. Everybody wants to use crypto and everybody wants to keep it under the radar. But once you
Get it
lose
to my
crypto, all of a sudden
job.
you're wanting the government to get involved, and that's what happens.
Get
And
it to
then
my
these
job.
politicians react to that. They have to try to protect their constituents, so they develop laws, not even understanding the technology behind it, and either blunt it so nothing happens, or we create so many fees and so much bureaucracy around crypto that it dies.
But let's also be really clear. There's studies that have shown that the legislation that comes out of DC is really powered by the lobbyists, not by the constituents. That's kind of the reality that got us here. It's still a fundamental problem with how at least DC works. Not
Agreed,
speaking.
100%.
I agree to
Lobbyist
a certain
over
point.
constituents.
I think they're trying to address concerns of their constituents, but it is molded by the lobbyists in the way that helps them, right? So I think if they want to do a bill, for example, this privacy bill that they're pushing forward, they want to do it because they want to address a concern of their constituents, but then the lobbyists help to mold it. And they actually do some education. The lobbyists come in and try to educate them on what they're building, what they're trying to legislate. So there is some help there, but I think obviously it's for their own benefit.
Okay, moving along. EU lawmakers propose the Cyber Resilience Act, a new set of rules for IoT companies and smart device makers to bolster and improve cybersecurity on their IoT devices or face fines. I love this, actually. European Union lawmakers have proposed a new set of product rules to apply to smart devices that's intended to compel makers of internet-connected hardware to tighten the leaky ships that they're selling to unaware consumers who are not cybersecurity experts, who
Default
should.
passwords.
Yeah, like stop putting the default password on the your piece of shit smart light as
Tyler,
admin.
these devices are all super leaky and they're all super IoT. Is,
Yep.
I mean, people have said this before. It's the wild feral west, right? They're just proliferating like gerbils, but they without it's built fast. They don't have security. A lot of them aren't designed to be long term. So if you look at them, they're a few year pieces, and they're all very leaky. So both U.S. and EU. And I thought EU proposed this a few years ago, but need to get their hands around this, and also more messaging. I think was the idea to consumers about how to use them, the security issues, and how long they'll last, like how long you'll actually have support on this thing. Because once it's there, um, it may not be supported in 2 years. But I think that they're all looking at IoT now. I saw one in the U.S. as well, law proposed law.
It is. I'm sorry, Jennifer. Did I speak up for you?
No, go ahead.
I just think this is a very welcome piece of legislation. If you look at your consumer electronics products, we've had safety regulations that have gone back decades, and the exposure of our identity and all of the risk that the consumers and users of these devices have. It's this should have been coming years ago. I think it's just definitely going to be very helpful on IoT and just kind of across the board, kind of a respect for privacy
It's more, but Dave,
and
it's
those
not. It's
risks.
more than privacy. It's the bigger issue is like shutting them down or misusing them. So say they get in and turn off all your thermostats, or IoT is everywhere, right? It's all over hospitals. It's in devices. It's not just a privacy issue. It's a functional issue. So if things go down everywhere, and you know, grandma's thermostat's turned off and she doesn't know how to turn the heat on, or your water thermostats are turned off. I mean, just look around. IoT is everywhere. My cat's got like 50 IoT devices, right? So they're just, it's what can they do and what can those control? It's much more.
Like
Yeah, no,
your
totally.
cat
On the
does.
security piece, I'm sorry. Just on the security piece, I think I've been kind of advocating for some level of licensing for CTOs or for companies. Before you can get products into the market, there's got to be some kind of a security checklist or something that has to do with just the resilience of a solution for a consumer. But thanks, Jennifer, for elaborating on
And
the security.
I'm not sure it's going to come out of the. I mean, look, these companies are coming out with software and IoT devices because they're trying to, their startups are trying to create a market, and they're not going to address security until they're forced to. And all of a sudden, there's a big PR release where they got caught, exposing data. It really has to come from industry. And industry groups, just like they put together a Wi-Fi standard, industry groups have to put these minimal standards for security out there, and that's the only way we're going to address this problem. It's not
I
going to
Could I
happen by governments for sure. It's not.
could I attempt to link this issue with the last issue around uh, politics, regulation, Coinbase, and IoT? And I think there's a common thread between them all, and that is that the rate of innovation, the rate of technologic change, far exceeds the rate of any political process to keep up, and the rate of the average consumer to keep up. And so, what we're experiencing, both in the political realm and in the regulatory tech realm, is that we're having a real difficulty allowing innovation to proliferate. Um, Without impairing it regionally by regulation. So, if we were to get really good at regulating security and certification in mechanisms that were onerous for the time to market, what we would see is a shift of which markets produce product, because consumers are going to buy based upon functional capability more so than on durability or longevity or security or some of the non-functional requirements. Consumers are so focused on functional requirements as opposed to non-functional requirements, and politicians are having trouble keeping up with just the constant blitz of new information, and their staffers only get so many minutes with them to, wrap their heads around nuances and complexities in this space, that there's kind of a cycle time disparity between innovation and regulation that has become structural. That's not to say that there aren't ways to address it. And in fact, we just had our first meeting of a task force based out of the Cybersecurity Center at UC Berkeley yesterday on how do we develop better methodologies for investors to understand what the security risks are and how they can be better addressed as potentially one lever to pull in this race between time to market and privacy and safety for the consumer. So it's not necessarily that evil is involved in any of this. I think it's that growing gap between the need to innovate and bring to market quickly and the need to protect the consumer in non-function requirements that are very opaque to the consumer and currently to investors. So I think we need to approach this through multiple different tactics to be able to close. We're not going to close the gap, but to narrow the gap between the innovation and functional requirements and the application of effective non-functional requirements.
Hey, John, let me jump in on a couple of points there really quickly. One is tech has always outpaced legislation. They can't keep up. And it's not just that they're getting deluged with information they can't get their heads around. If that's the case, they can make more special working groups and hire more staffers. It's also that that is part of it, but these guys are a bit antiquated. Most of them, what's the average age? Over 70, I think, closer, in Congress. But they have some very smart staffers. There's also, add to that, the legal process. Okay, by the time they get their heads around something and propose legislation and send it out for comment, and all the industry groups lobby and lobby and lobby, and as we said, get it in their direction, and then comment comes back, it takes years, so they can't keep up. That whole process is not going to keep up with tech. And as you said, they're companies, and this isn't just a current privacy and security issue. This is how tech works: is to get the stuff out the door. They're market capitalists, right? And so yes, the consumers will buy it, but it's also the companies pushing it out the door. And part of that is that they're not aware of these things, or that they're just the incentives aren't properly aligned. As you said, it's make money, get out the door. The consumers are buying it. We'll deal with the other stuff later, or we don't have it. It's also that they don't see the downstream effects. That's the issues we're having with AI. The product engineers are not qualified to even evaluate the downstream impacts of AI, and the marketing and commercial side wants it out fast. So there's a lot going on here. Addressing it is going to be a multi pronged approach. It's going to be industry group tends to do this. That's what you have in we benchmark across tech companies, or you have in advertising, the IAD and all those boards. Also, government regulations are going to start rolling down. So the Fed regulations that have been rolling out, those will roll down through all of their subcontractors and their subcontractors and their subcontractors. That's one way. Insurance companies putting out requirements. Those aren't going to go into product design, but those go through process in companies. And another one that I heard this week, they said that one of the whistleblowers in Facebook, or one of those larger companies, that Congress's reply was, well, how do we address this? Do we start building privacy controls into the product design lifecycle? And they said clearly the way the Congress was talking about it, someone had seriously coached them, because that was a very advanced statement. I mean, that's how we've looked at it for decades, is that, I sit with privacy by design in the product lifecycle. But so you're right. I just wanted to make clear that there are some other nuances going on there.
Yeah, I agree 100% with everything you said. And Ann Kabukian, who pioneered the privacy by design, is out of Canada, is leading um, that inspired that whole privacy by design initiative. And the the final point that I made is it has to be a multi-pronged approach. So I wasn't saying um, that the only pathway is X, Y, or Z. There have to be multiple pathways, because this is a structural phenomenon. And yes, technology has always shown a lag between innovation and regulation, and that's always going to be the case. What I was suggesting is the pace of innovation continues to accelerate across so many fronts that for politicians to keep abreast of that, when they've only got so many minutes a day they can listen to their staffers, so they can hire armies of staffers but how they compress. And I've done lots of briefings of staffers in the Beltway, and I I I think that the challenge of a staffer is, how do I condense all of this intense information into a 5 or 10 minute conversation with someone who's going to either draft or mark up or vote on legislation. It's an impedance mismatch between the volume of nuanced input and the options of legislative approval. So 100% agree with every word you said, Jennifer. It's very complicated, and it represents one of the biggest dilemmas of the digital era, is how do you more efficiently close that, or reduce the gap between tech innovation and appropriate regulation.
And if I can just add an important word, because impedance mismatch. Oh, John, oh, that's better than about 20 ounces of coffee in the morning over here. Thank you. Um, running around the valley for decades, there's a difference, and this is where the culture of innovation. It's all about innovation and innovation. Innovate. Anything we can do to just let the innovation happen is not, with that cultural context. You get what we have, and you get the rise of the hacker culture of just move fast and break things. The real kind of taking even if it's at 30,000 or 31,000 foot kind of level, is it's about the domestication of the technology. The having incubators and all these, having a vibrant investor community, and throwing a bunch of shit at the wall just to kind of see where you get some traction, is a different culture, and it's got us a lot of the problems that we have, versus a more thoughtful, like as you're saying, privacy by design, security by design. That's just being a thoughtful product manager, really, quite frankly. Um, but the domestication, when you're talking about when things really get the long tail of distribution and deployment and things like that, the threshold for what we need as a global technical consuming community, is to the bar has just been raised, right? So I think it's awesome. I didn't know that a staff, that what a great thing for a staffer to kind of feed into the process. That's amazing. But thanks. What was that? The impedance. That's awesome.
Something to think about, because I think we've been kind of negative in this in general about app stores, but one of the things that the app stores bring to the table is at least some of that stuff is being funneled through. And if we didn't have some of the controls, for example, some of the companies put through on the app stores, you could just imagine, on an application standpoint, some of the, I mean, I call, and it wasn't my term, but the Google App Store is kind of a cesspool of malware, and it's because their controls are a little bit lax compared to Apple. So there's a benefit to these app stores because they do provide some of that. Not as well as they could, but it's a start.
And just as a kind of a interesting technical note, Raspberry Pi, the OS, only I think in the last two updates or three updates, changed the default username and password so that you have to set it when you set up the system. So this design for privacy or security, it's nice that it's changing, but a lot of it seems to be pushed by industry itself, in the same way that biotech or genetic engineering has a kind of a collective effort internally by the players or actors themselves. So it's kind of sad that it took this long. I would have thought that would have been something we don't let people do ever. Just try admin and password as the admin and password.
Okay, next up is experts say that the former Twitter head of security, Peter Zatko's Senate testimony about Twitter is unlikely to have a big impact on Elon Musk's legal battle to terminate the $44 billion takeover deal. Walmart launches a virtual try-on tool to let shoppers see how clothes would look on their own bodies without visiting a store. And I have to say, it looks pretty freaking cool. It starts off looking like any ordinary mobile e-commerce shop. Then you can point your phone at yourself in a head-to-toe kind of fashion, and it scans you, your body, and then you can replace the models in the e-commerce photos with yourself and your body type, and it will put the clothes on you as it actually it shows you standing in your own house in the body scan kind of view, but now you're wearing the clothes instead of the models wearing the clothes.
A number of years ago, Walmart purchased a men's store called Bonobos. I don't know if you guys have
Good.
ever heard of it. It's
Met
one
them.
where your
Yeah.
measurements are taken. Yep. Okay, and then it's sent to you. So this is kind of in line. They're doing a good job of acquiring, learning, and then expanding. So it's kind of interesting. Good to hear that.
Tyler, can you pin that? We have technology that
Yeah,
does the
just
same
did.
thing. I'm kind of interested. Thank you.
If only the clothes could be, fitted to your particular measurements. Because I like the idea of the clothes being put on, but to what extent they actually represent what the final product will look like, hard to tell. So if they can scale that pretty well, and or potentially add a customization option, I'm in.
So if you're familiar with Bonobos, you can go online on it. But they actually kept your specific measurements. They only had so many stores, but they actually kept your specific measurements, and it allowed you to order at will. And their database was supposedly amazing. So it'd be interesting to see what Walmart does. But yeah, you got to measure yourself right, but then it allows you to buy whatever you want whenever you want and perfectly fit.
Does that affect the return process? Like if the fabric or the clothing is completely fitted to your measurement, you won't be able to return it back, just like when you buy a suit or something and get it hemmed or
That's a
tailor.
great question. I have to ask my nephew because he worked for them for at least 3 years, but I'm not sure about the return policy. But great question.
I would doubt they would change their return policy, but I bet you they'd eliminate a lot of returns that were returned because it didn't fit properly.
Okay. Next up is Meta's oversight board says that Meta should be more careful with automated moderation and criticizes Meta for removing a cartoon depicting police violence in Colombia. And the next is from South China Morning Post. It says a look at Shanghai's status as China's chip hub, where the main chip company SMIC and SME are making 14 nanometer and 90 nanometer chips, approximately $37 billion market size in 2022, or 25% of China's total. So most of the chips are happening in Shanghai. Okay, big deal. Next is it's 1 billion Chinese citizens appeared for sale. Oh, data. Oh, since the data of the 1 billion Chinese citizens appeared for sale, smaller amounts have appeared on forums, often including personal information and national IDs. Netflix told ad buyers that Netflix expects its ad-supported tier to reach 4.4 million unique viewers globally in 2022 and 40 million by 2023, and 13 million of those in the US. So somebody saw the deck that Netflix is circulating around to, they want to build an ad network, and they want to build a free layer of Netflix, or a greatly reduced cost version. In Spotify, there's a free ad supported version of Spotify, and Netflix wants to have the same. Essentially, it might not be free, but it'll be ad supported. And to have an ad supported network, you need ads. So you need people to buy advertising, and they need to know how many eyeballs there's going to be. Well, Netflix doesn't know because this product doesn't exist yet. So, how many people will have ad supported Netflix? Well, Netflix is telling the advertisers that they will expect to have about 4.5 million in by the end of the year, and 10 times that by the end of next year. And oh, this is interesting. It says Houston-based company Majority, a mobile bank serving migrants to the U.S., raises $30 million, bringing total funding to 83 million. And I happen to know Majority are very dear friends of mine from Stockholm. They're not Houston-based at all. They're very much Stockholm-based. They're partners in my event, and they've been sponsors of my event for many years. So this is really strange that TechCrunch is calling them Houston-based. I wonder why. No doubt they have. Their U.S. office might be in Houston. I wonder what that's about. Yeah, the founder, Magnus Larsson. Any Swede, any Scandinavian knows the name Magnus Larsson is as Swedish as it gets, um, other than Sven Svensson. Yeah, I don't know why they're calling it Houston-based. That's kind of weird. Maybe they have an office in Houston. If they're focusing on the U.S. market, then that makes sense because the Latinos, if they're focusing on serving the incredibly massive Mexican um, market of then Houston's the right place to be. And the remittances of payments across borders and mobile banking for migrants makes sense. Houston has a huge migrant population. Yeah, so no doubt they have an office there, but they're not uh, Houston based by any stretch. They're Stockholm based. So, in fact, their lead investor, their angel investor, is one of my dear friends as well. So the next one is California-based company Hone, an online executive learning and development service, raises a bunch of money. Everyone's raising money, and that's good to see. What else? Just scanning the last of them here. Oh, Canva, who makes kind of the new modern browser-based version of Photoshop, kind of the new design tool that everyone's excited about, unveils a whole bunch of new products, including Canva Docs to compete with like Google Docs, Canva websites to compete with like Wix, Canva whiteboards, and Canva data visualizations. Brings backgrounds, removing videos, and adds a remote control to presentations and etc. So Canva's turning into a whole suite of products.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome, Tyler. I'm listening to you because I actually have Canva. I don't use it that often though, but that's awesome with all the digital products that are coming out that we've already discussed, like digital content creation, both the oral and AI. But this with all the it's going to put a lot of web designers or graphic artists are going to have challenges, especially if you start combining it with things like Dolly. But a question here again, back to tie it to a few topics ago, is security. Like WordPress is one of the things that gets hit constantly. So wondering how these guys are doing. But awesome, sweet.
yeah. California Governor Gavin Newsom signs a new law requiring social networks to share moderation rules, despite concerns it may violate the First Amendment. So, what are their rules for moderation? Interesting. Yeah, they should. I kind of like that in a way. I mean, we'd have to really tackle that from every angle. But on at first glimpse, maybe users of a platform should know what the rules are with regard to moderation. They should have a very clear list of rules. Discord rolls out Reddit-like forum channels designed for asynchronous chat about specific topics. So yeah, they're going into Reddit land, and Reddit's going into Discord land, and you're going to see the future of how that hybrid of community develops online. It's really interesting.
Yeah, Kyler. Also back to the moderation one. I'm gonna have to look that up. I hadn't heard about it. But that book that is coming out, I think it's this week, The Chaos Machine, about social media platforms, etc. I know in there they address that someone that worked at someone in the chat put it's now Meta, but Meta is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. Anyways, of Facebook, that their moderation, that they aren't even enforcing it, that there's no way they can even follow the rules internally, or that the rules don't make sense. And this stuff is all outsourced to like the Philippines and those areas, but they said that even the workers doing it, that the rules don't make sense. So maybe trying to expose it is a way to have more accountability and transparency. Obviously transparency, but also accountability there.
All right. Well, we've exhausted the big boring headlines for today, which means it's time for the tweets. So did anybody have a hot tweet since we met yesterday?
Tyler, did you share the news about the Patagonia owner
We didn't.
donating his wealth?
No,
Yes?
I saw it. Feel free.
Okay, so the Patagonia owner, let me pull up the article I shared. It's from New York Times, donating all his wealth or most of it to a nonprofit organization for climate change related efforts, paying taxes, and completely changing the way people think about money. And article is like amazing in terms of what they're trying to achieve. Billionaires sharing their wealth, donating it for climate related causes. They have built a trust that their family is going to watch, and 98% of the wealth is now transferred to a non-profit organization.
Okay.
Is that initiative? A lot of billionaires have joined an initiative. I forget what it's called, where they do that. I think the Gates, and what's her name that started Spanx. There's a bunch of them that are in that. Aaron, so
No, 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 not that at all. It's the Patagonia. You can. I shared
Yeah.
the article with
Just so you
Carol.
know, it still is for profit. He's just putting it into a trust and to hold and use the profits for climate change initiatives.
Yep. You're
For,
referring
for
to the Giving Pledge, Jennifer. The Gates initiated, and a bunch of other billionaires have committed to giving away 99% of their wealth, essentially.
yeah, it's a commitment. It's not that they're all giving it to one organization. So I'm just wondering if Patagonia was doing this part of that.
It's a pledge, to be precise, but yes. Um, yeah, but in this case, he's putting the company into a trust, and so the earnings or profits will go towards fighting climate change, which will probably get more people thinking. As it's genius marketing is what it is. I mean, if you give a damn about the environment, then you might feel better about choosing Patagonia over its competitors. Um, Foxconn and Vedanta to build a $19 billion chip factory in India. The third semiconductor plant announced in India in recent months, which is aiming to be a global chip maker, Foxconn and Vedanta. So India ain't fooling around on this chip thing, and nor should they be. It's a smart move. What else? Eric, you just had one about the new phases of water detected at University of Cambridge, where they
Yeah,
detected.
yeah. So it showed that water under very high pressure happens to have weird properties, and it reminds me of some of the work that NASA was doing in trying to look for various forms of life that oftentimes we don't know what life will look like or what kind of chemistry it'll have, and we sometimes tend to forget that the chemistry that we have is at standard operating pressures and temperatures, and that things get a little bit more exotic. And because it is a contentious topic, like the idea of studying water all on its own has oftentimes been career suicide for some scientists. So it's nice to see that, one, it's getting some recognition, but two, that we have this expansion of properties and these elements that we thought were otherwise simple. So really cool, and hopefully maybe Katerina can get that person on her show, or
Okay,
members from the team.
you had a couple of other interesting ones, like the daylight does something to the brain, according to a new study. The length of day changes how neurons fire in the brains of mice. And there's new reason to believe that dinosaurs were not wiped out by an
I
asteroid.
just interfere with the mice ones? It's kind of doesn't make too much. I mean, it makes kind. No, I didn't look at it. I saw it in the news, and I'm not sure how much sense it makes because mice mostly live in burrows and try to hide all day long, unless they use transgenic mice that model the human disease model that depletion, of light affects them. I'm not sure how much sense it
Humans
makes.
burrow too, though. They just burrow with their smartphones.
Well, for them, for example, if you read an article that says we stressed out mice and all they did is put them into a tube, into a dark tube, and restrained them, mice actually are not stressed by that. Maybe just by putting them in there, but they also get used to that, so they are not like stressed by that. Like there's a lot of research that just directly translates our environment's behavior and related to that genes and stuff directly for mice, and for a lot of things it works like for principles, but for direct environmental stuff it doesn't translate one to one. Yeah, you can say if a mouse gets like huge dopamine levels from running all day, that's what mice love to do. This is not necessarily true for us. And there's an interesting study that came out. I didn't share it with tech news, but that in the UK, a group is working on showing that even in humans, if you have the same genes, but if you grow up and live in different environments, the genes are used differently. Even in humans that have different environmental exposures, genes are used in a different way. And I think we will see more research. They're kind of trailblazing this research, and it's really interesting. So sometimes just think about how mice live and then think if that makes sense sometimes.
Well, I think those are all excellent questions, and if you ever get the opportunity to invite the researcher or their team, I'm sure we could definitely dive in. But just to quickly comment on the dinosaur one, that maybe it wasn't an asteroid, maybe it was the volcanoes. Those seem to be a huge source of carbon as well. And just as a fun fact, when a large metallic object flies by the Earth, it induces electromagnetic interaction, and those are hypothesized to be events that could trigger a volcanic eruption. So, in terms of volcanic eruptions, dinosaurs, asteroid is coming in, and then to top it all off, the volcanoes and the asteroid itself again interact with the atmosphere and cause lightning storms. So, if you can just picture for a moment the kind of biblical scene that you would see if you were hanging out with the dinosaurs around this time. It would look quite spectacular and in some instances resemble the paintings that we see in some of the caves around the world. So, anyways.
So, Katerina, you had one about China to produce clean energy with nuclear fusion by 2028, according to their top weapons expert.
Yeah, they run this reaction for 17 minutes, according to this. I mean, it's just something I read, like, I don't know when I shared this about 20 minutes ago. But if that's really true, and this news outlet is, I've read a lot of pretty accurate news stuff from there. So, yeah, if that is true, this is a huge step. And then that's really realistic, the 2028 one. And then we are all in trouble, I think, or unless we can spy on them.
Right. So, to unpack this for anyone who might not know, he's essentially claiming that they'll reach cold fusion in the next 6 years, which would supply unlimited, really unlimited, complete. The cost of energy will be zero globally forever. So goodbye climate change for the most part, and hello. It's you cannot. We as humans are incapable of imagining the thousands of ways that this will change humanity forever. It is truly profound.
But doesn't that depend, Tyler, on who owns the technology and if they choose to share it until other people can crack it?
Whoever gets that technology first and doesn't share it most certainly will result in a conflict.
How will they
Uh,
store unlimited energy? They have no other choice but to share it. Unless they produce another form of storage of unlimited energy, which in my mind is not possible.
you won't really need storage or much of it um, when there's unlimited energy like that. I mean, the grid will just be at you won't be able to exhaust any grid, so there's not a lot of need for storage unless you're worried about it not being on. But if they can keep it
So
because what it is they
I
have it.
mean, how will they limit it? So they have to share it with everyone, right?
so
There's
Tyler, a lot of grids are
there are
already.
technologies that have been kept secret. There's also a supply constraint when these things come into play, where you're only going to have so much of this limited resource and ability to have this many magnets available. So they're going to go buy up the market before it
The
becomes something that's accessible.
the Chinese found on the moon enough of the resources you would need to run this, and if they have limited energy, they can just use that energy on the moon to harvest that stuff and keep going.
Well,
But
it's like a
anyway,
Star Wars movie in real life. They're making clones of people. They got unlimited energy. Basically, it's game over for the rest of us.
So this is a cool topic. I'll schedule a room on specifically gaming this out. Initially, just bear in mind a lot of grids are not too far off their capacity in terms of what they can carry at times, regardless of where it's coming from. So the cables underground and above ground, everything's going to need upgrading. And put all of the fusion news through the right lens. There's a difference between engineering break even and physics break even, scientific break even. I'm pretty sure I've been keeping a reasonably close eye that where all the breakthroughs are talking about scientific break even or theoretical break even. Nothing's anywhere near engineering break even where it's actually economically viable, as far as I understand. I might be behind the curve, but that's what I understand. When it comes, it'll be awesome. And if we can
yeah,
build the machines that put all the carbon we put away, then maybe it will be transformational. I'd be interested to hear Albert's thought. Albert, what's your thought on this very briefly? Because I know that you probably thought it through as well.
I'm very wary of unlimited anything given to these naked apes, having shown what they can do in the past. And there is a moment here in economics where you have pollution as a byproduct of any human activity, and you have to figure out what is going to be the sink to deal with the pollution that is generated once we have unlimited energy.
Yeah, it could
But
be
the thing is, you can
seriously
have
problematic. We need to
carbon
game it out in
capture
needs a
at
whole
large
session.
scale. So you would do the opposite. You can have all your ships run on the shit. You can do carbon capture no matter how inefficient it is. Doesn't matter. You can clean up the ocean, clean up the lakes, clean up the air, everything with that. Like, you don't need to feed
Yeah,
everything to the current electrical system. You can use it for other stuff.
And
yeah.
that's why there will
We
be
need
a
to do a
war.
whole session on it because a lot more and more things actually don't run off the grid. They run off some other fuel source like batteries these days. And therefore, you're just suddenly massively increasing the demand. It's not quite as simple as people are thinking. The grids often hit something close to their peak. Therefore, it doesn't matter what you put at the power station. You can't supply anymore because the wires aren't big enough. And the end devices often run off batteries. So again, there's a gap. So it's
Yes.
fantastic, and we could do a lot with it, but we need to think it through carefully. I'll schedule a whole room on it probably next Tuesday.
Yeah. Two quick points. Some of the cold fusion experiments that I'm aware of would easily, when proven, would easily downscale to every household having their own generation. So the transmission may be less of an issue. The prior issue that was being mentioned is unlimited energy will generate unlimited pollution of various sorts, which is 100% guaranteed. And one of the biggest pollutants of uh, energy transformation is heat. So every time you convert electrical to kinetic energy or gravitational to kinetic or kinetic to electrical or whatever, whichever direction you go, the inefficiency of energy conversion manifests often prominently as heat. So we could be substituting. Let me just finish. I'm almost done.
How are you turning a
I'm
complete
sorry. I'm almost done.
carbon-free
Let me
energy
just
so
finish,
that
Katerina. Katerina, I just wanted to make
Katerina, hold on,
Let him
one
Katerina.
last
finish. Let him finish.
Yes,
one
John.
last point, and I'm done. And so we with unlimited cold fusion energy, we might be substituting energy transformation heating waste for uh, um, carbon based global warming based on greenhouse gases. So there is there's not a free lunch there. It could be very useful for temporizing a transition away from fossil fuels, but it's not a completely free lunch.
this is not fossil fuels. This is not using fossil fuels. It doesn't produce any CO2 emission. You don't have to turn it
He's
into
not
heat.
No,
claiming that
I didn't
at all.
imply
Katerina,
there was.
John
That-
understands that
that-
very well. I think you misinterpreted
he's
him.
not claiming that at all. He's very
You
aware.
can replenish the
He
ice we
didn't
are
say that.
losing by pumping it back up. Because you have cold fusion, you can do things that right now don't make any sense. But you can save glaciers with this. Like, you can do so many things. Like, how are we turning? This is the end solution to all of our problems. Everything else, solar, and it's all bullshit compared to that. How can you turn it? Solar in the end, what do you do with solar? Heat up your house? Like, run ACs? Just in a very inefficient way, and you have all this crap laying around that you can't use after 10 years anymore. So I don't understand. Like this, I'm sorry. This time you don't make any sense.
You're not even addressing what he said. Everything you said
Yeah,
has nothing to do with anything he's just said.
yeah.
That
He
you
was just talking
you
about the
are using
transition. He
nuclear
was
fusion.
talking. John was talking about the transition between now and whenever that free energy or less expensive energy comes out. That it's not going to be a complete
It's hidden
replacement.
cost.
It's not feasible in all areas, and it'll be gradual. And so he was talking about the process.
He's talking about the hidden costs of unlimited energy, which are real, and he's correct about that and being
Can,
the
can
I briefly want to mention I read the article briefly, and within 5 seconds, the scientists were able to produce the heat 150 times more than sun. I mean, think about that. That's just phenomenal.
if I can just throw a couple or even just one idea into this whole mix, because I totally agree with what Albert said at the outset of the response about the monkeys, and getting it back to cultural context. As long as we have monkeys, whether they're in power or not, thinking about, hey, I want to get unlimited anything. That's been the problem that's gotten us here. The consumption, this idea that we need to keep consuming the up and to the right. What we need is a shift, a pivot to harmony, just a concept of like, no, you don't need unlimited power at all, because there's going to be a lot of other issues with it. But it's more of a cultural expectation. We're about a philosophy of what life is about, and just an acknowledgement that we everything we do has an effect on each other and the planet. This little life giving orb. That to me is kind of the biggest context and the biggest challenges we have. Finding out little point solutions, and even on the transition, those are really great points, John. It's just kind of not being so greedy as the monkeys that we are. Thanks, Albert.
Well, of course, because you don't live in India where you cook to death currently, where so many people are dying from heat and completely having terrible health issues, including children, because of heat. And how could you solve this to run ACs, even during climate change in countries like that? With cold fusion. That's the only way. Because their system that is currently running will collapse and millions of people will die in those countries. Of course, you're happy with your AC home right now and how it is. But this is not how it is for other people. And also, clean water and food, producing food. They don't have that. They don't have clean water. They don't have shit.
Yeah,
And with free energy, you
talking
can
about
solve
the
all
benefits.
problems.
Yeah, you're talking about the benefits, which are obvious. He's talking about the hidden costs, which is a totally separate conversation. So moving on, Tesla is being sued for deceiving customers about self-driving cars. Tesla faces scrutiny from U.S. regulators over the safety of its automated driving systems and will face its first jury trial in February over a driver fatality. Musk told Tesla Owners Club in June that solving full self-driving technology is the difference between Tesla being worth a lot of money and being worth basically zero. And that's from South China Morning Post. And then back on the previous topic from Bloomberg, an electric airplane company called Heart unveils their 30-seat model. The plane is set for delivery in 2028, around the same time that China is predicting to have unlimited energy. It is 50% bigger than the prior design. It's a Swedish startup called Heart Aerospace with an electric airplane. And one of their biggest and first investors is also one of my very dearest friends, Ted Person. And Swedish, although I have to double check on that, but I'm almost certain Ted and EQT are the primary led the A round. Swedish startup secures Saab and Air Canada as new investors in the latest round. And that's what I have for today. I'll have to leave
Hey,
it
hey
on.
Tyler, I
Yeah,
sent you like a tweet yesterday. I mean, I've sent you other tweets. Okay, that sometimes I don't know, they don't get read. I mean, you don't go through the whole pile of
I
everything.
don't. I just covered the last 6 hours.
Okay. Oh, okay. Because all right.
If you sent it more than 6 hours ago, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've sent it more
You
than
want to
six
But
bring it
hours
up
again,
ago.
now
Yeah.
quickly?
now that I
Yeah. I'm
looked
gonna.
six
Yeah.
hours ago, 6 hours ago, 6 hours ago,
Yeah.
they're
Ken, what is
starting
it
to be
about?
repetitious to the ones from 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago,
Well,
one
not
hour.
this one. I guarantee you,
Okay,
not
go ahead.
this one. This is fairly. It has kind of international implications, but it's very localized to Las Vegas.
Right.
It was an article that the Allegiant Stadium, which is where the Raiders play here, the new stadium we have in Las Vegas. Basically, I mean, this is we've discussed this technology before in like stores like a 7-Eleven, but they're going to have concessions where people just take what they want, soda or whatever, and it automatically knows what they're taking out of this area, and it bills their credit card. So there's no going up to somebody and having to ring it up and all of that, and it's obviously much faster. You don't have to. It makes the concession lines much shorter. You know.
Can you put it back? I mean, can if you
Yeah,
take
you can
took
put it
it down?
back also. Yeah, and it actually knows if you put it back.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that would be just like a mini bar. Now, I assume you have to put it back in the right place. I mean, I know that doesn't always happen, but yeah.
Yeah, but some maybe if you take it down, or it charge you immediately, no matter you put it back or not, because it's sensor where it credit directly.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's why I ask you if you can put
no.
it back.
Apparently, you can put it. According to the article, you can put it back. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Very nice. And we will leave it there and we'll meet again tomorrow for the Friday version, which is usually the best of the week. And thank you again, everybody. And DM me if you have yet to help me with my Google ranking thing.
Yeah.
DM me on my Twitter or on the Tech News Twitter. And if you have 60 seconds to spare, it's much appreciated. And either way, is Ben starting a room now?
Thank you. Yes, Ben's room has started. I've already pinned it on top, so please join
Cool.
him if you're
All right.
interested.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, Tyler.
See you
Bye
next time.
bye.